Hello, hello. Welcome to the Five Talents Podcast. I'm your host, Abel Pacheco. I interview the top commercial real estate investors and industry experts so you can learn from their experiences. So if you're an investor, a high W-2 earner, or real estate or tech sales professional that wants to invest in real estate without having to manage properties or leave your day job, then this podcast is for you. Or if you're already investing in real estate, but you're doing it part-time and you want to become a full-time multifamily or full-time commercial real estate investor, this podcast is for you too. You're going to learn a ton. You will learn from real-life multifamily investors and other professionals in the industry. They're going to share their blueprints for success, and I'm super excited that you're here. So I hope you enjoy the show. Hello, hello. My name is Abel Pacheco. I'm your host for the Five Talents Podcast, and we are super excited today to have a very special guest, Miss Bethany Babcock. Bethany, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm super appreciative, very grateful that you would join. And here in San Antonio, it's always great to meet a local favorite because we do this podcast. It goes everywhere in the U.S. And a lot of times we end up reaching people that are outside of San Antonio, Texas. And, being local here, it's always a treat when I get to hang out with an expert, hang out with a pro, somebody else that has a lot of expertise in, what we're doing in the commercial real estate side. So thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
I'm happy to be here.
Yes, ma'am. Well, before we get started, let me read a couple of bullet points, about your bio or just out loud so that the people on the, whether you're listening or watching the video, you really understand. Bethany has a lot of expertise in commercial real estate. She is a principal and CEO of Foresite Commercial Real Estate, and you guys are in investment sales and leasing and management and really managing, if I'm right, $100 million plus of commercial real estate. Hopefully all of that is accurate, correct?
Yeah, you got that right.
Okay, that's awesome. And you guys are really doing this. You sold properties in about 13 states. So not just locally here, you guys are really reaching out. And then I know you're a mother of 3 young children, all under 6. So how you juggle all of that and more is just, all of the reasons I absolutely want to reach out to Miss Bethany. And so thank you very much. Why don't we start by telling us, a little bit about you, who you are and what you do and, what your business is up to currently. That'd be awesome.
Sure. As you mentioned, I work at Foresite Commercial Real Estate. It's a company that I helped start, 2014. So about 6 years old. And started out, I worked at Marcus & Millichap doing investment sales and really saw an opportunity to do management and leasing from a different approach of adding value to properties and focusing on the end result of the value that can be created in leasing and management. And it started to really pick up steam and do really well. So my partner at Marcus & Millichap ended up coming over and partnering with me at Foresite. And then he started the investment sales division at our company. From there, things really started to heat up and grow. So we have about 20 team members now. And what I think is the best part is just we all really enjoy working together more than anything. And we all share a common goal and a passion for the industry and a passion for teaching others about it, whether it be our clients or new entrants in the market.
Yeah, that's so awesome. 20 people really cooking along. If everyone has the same vision, mission, and you guys are aligned, you guys are going to set the world on fire as you've been doing. So that's really awesome. 6 years, 5 years prior, like you said, at Marcus & Millichap. And then you were a property manager yourself for some time as well, right?
I was, yeah. So I think that was a big help in my career. I mean, it's a lot. It's a path that a lot of people don't really look for when they're getting into commercial real estate. They look at the more fancy, brokerage and investment sales, but property management kind of gets brushed under the rug as being not as cool. But man, it is an awesome career to understand the basics of what works and what doesn't in investments. And it makes you really valuable whether you continue your career in property management or go into something else. Understanding the operations aspect of it is so fantastic. So I'm really grateful for those years.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so it sounds like you swayed your partner over. He very much bought into your vision, bought into the mission, and he came over. And now just you guys are contributing to bigger, better things and attracting some amazing talent over there. And so tell us a little bit about your, kind of your asset classes of commercial real estate. So pretty broad world. And also to frame it, Bethany, we probably have a lot of passive investors, people that are looking at deals and investing in syndications, some multifamily, some across other type of commercial properties. And I think we have some new general partners or principals, people that are trying to, jump in the world as an owner for the first time, right? So when I say commercial real estate, broad word, why don't you take us down to like your specific asset classes, your expertise, and we could start there.
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, really, it came from when you said that my partner bought into my vision. It was really our vision.
Nice.
He and I together had kind of put together a plan of what we felt like the market needed, and he and I were both working like in a specific asset class, which was multi-tenant and single-tenant retail. Between the prices of 2 to 10 million was kind of our sweet spot throughout Texas. And so we worked in that asset class for a long time. And in talking to investors, they would get really, really frustrated with the lack of initiative shown in leasing and management companies. And so really it was both of us thinking, we could solve this, right? We can come at it with a different vision and approach. And so the decision was made, that I would go and do that on the leasing side and property management. He would continue to do investment sales, but at some point the company grew to a point where it just made more sense to have everybody under one roof instead of sending clients back and forth to each other for those different services. And we continue to mostly focus on retail. Now we do have a little bit of office, and it's growing as a team. We have 2 team members that focus on office projects and spend all of their time on that and understand that market really well. And that's kind of where I got started in a career as well. So I would say office and retail is our bread and butter. And generally speaking, I would say if we had to call it a class, that's a very subjective term. I'd say probably class A and B properties is where we tend to do the best. But really what we've noticed is our area of expertise is more on the sophistication level of investors rather than the product itself.
Oh, yeah.
So where we tend to do really well is with clients that are full-time investors, have a staff. We do really well with family offices, and we do really well with funds. And so it just kind of is the product that we work on as a result of those clients that we have the relationships with, not necessarily the product itself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense because in my world, the sophistication side of it, if I'm trying to get in there for the, the very first one, then I'm hoping that I can convince a broker that I have enough experience, capital, the ability to close so that they even take me seriously. And I'm trying to, go find a new property versus a family office or a sophisticated investor. They've done this, time and time again. They're real buyers. They're looking for something specific, most likely. And that makes perfect sense. They drive the asset classes that you guys are probably working on because they're looking for a specific type.
That's exactly right.
Makes sense. So 6 years ago at Foresite compared to today, what were you doing 6 years ago at Foresite, and maybe help us frame the picture for the journey to today?
Well, I would say the first year was not glamorous, and it was incredibly humbling. There was this expectation of what we could deliver to clients and what we wanted to be versus what we were at the time, and our limitations being a staff of 1, and having to wear all these hats and being pulled in lots of different directions. It was a very humbling year because you wanted to be the best option for your clients. And I'm a big believer, Chad's a big believer, everyone on our team is a big believer that if you're not the best for the client, you tell them who is. And you don't take stuff that you're not the best for. And so it was this constant struggle of, I have to be the best option for them and deliver excellence. Otherwise, I gotta let this one go. And so that put a lot of pressure on me beyond what the client was expecting even to deliver. And there were times that I didn't. I simply was stretched too thin. And so as the team grew, and I was able to focus on training and helping other people so that the clients weren't expecting everything from me, it really started to turn around and grow as a company rather than, me hanging a shingle. And it got better for our clients and it got better for me. But I noticed the limitation of the company was in our ability to attract and retain talent. And so people will say, what do you guys want to grow to? What's your vision for the company? Where are you guys growing and going? And my default saying is always the same. We're growing at the rate of people. So at the rate we can find the right people, at the rate we can recruit the right people, or that we can train the right people, is the speed at which we'll grow, no faster, no slower. And so that is kind of the transition we've made over the past year. We've been really fortunate. The first year, when I'm hiring, people are like, Foresite, who? One of my first hires was Zach Carr, who's still with us today. He didn't know, anything about the company or the lack of our company at the time. He was just really excited to get into commercial real estate. And he put a lot of faith in us and came on board and did a great job. And we'd laugh because when he was first cold calling, he'd be like, hey, I'm Zach with Foresite. He'd be like, who?
Yeah.
And now he's like, man, these people that start now, they don't know what it was like. And so we get to have that kind of reminiscing of how challenging it was to build a brand and a reputation that people could rely on and trust on in our market. So yeah, a lot has changed, a lot. And the job for me has changed from being a property manager and an accountant and a broker to being a manager and a recruiter. Definitely changed. My day-to-day has changed significantly.
Yeah, that's definitely a journey in 6 years and $100 million under management. You've done deal after deal, effort after effort, probably one client at a time. And now I'm sure you have your same clients that kind of come back in their next deal, whether it's leasing, selling, one or the other. But that's a tremendous run. And the properties that you manage today, so like you said, retail, office, looking at that leasing management, what a time for your asset class. What are the biggest changes you see last year pre-COVID to like right now? Like what's going on? You're the expert in this area.
Man, the key question you asked there is what's going on. I would love to know what's going on. But we're really fortunate because a lot of the product that we work on was with local or regional tenants.
Yes.
As far as retail goes. And so what that really meant is we had a direct line of communication with the decision makers. So when the poop hit the fan and things are being shut down and everyone's trying to figure out who pays what, and we were really fortunate that the group of properties that we managed and leased were primarily leased by regional or local tenants with regional or local banks. And so that made and facilitated the conversations. And so really we were able to work things out and talk and change things up on a day-to-day basis as the things were changing and the rules were changing about who can open, who can't, and how much. But so in that regard, we were very fortunate. We have some other properties with big anchors, the big power center. That one was a struggle. That one, was a challenge during this market because their attitude was just, we won't pay and we won't answer our phone and deal with it. And so we were like, well, we still have the landscaper to pay and the mortgage to pay, and you can't just not pay. And so it was a very big deal to work through that. But for the most part, we were pretty fortunate. As far as where things are going now, and businesses are still struggling. I'm not going to lie. We're seeing a rapid recovery here in Texas, San Antonio specifically. Mm-hmm. It's picking up quicker than I think most people anticipate, including myself. I can be a realist or some call a pessimist. But it's picking up a lot quicker. What is fun to see for me is the new businesses starting up. And we're starting to see that on the B- and C properties first. These are people who got laid off, chefs who, the restaurants closed, are like, you know what, I always dreamed of starting my own. And they're making it happen, and they're making those calls, and they're calling us, and we get to walk them through that stage. Even though those aren't like these great fees, these aren't these great promising credit tenants that normally everyone would be like, yay, I'm loving it. I'm loving seeing this birth of new businesses. It's like a whole new generation of business owners come about and start to fill these centers. So if there's a silver lining in all of this, it's seeing those come about. In crisis, there is opportunity, and I really enjoy seeing people find it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. Especially, well, number one, I'm happy that I'm talking to somebody that's local, that's seeing this in my community. So it's great to hear. And then, yeah, the resiliency of people just coming back. And like you said, every crisis, there's opportunity within it. And some people may not have had whatever you call it, the motivation, the gumption, the decision point to say, I'm gonna go now. I think that was us with our podcast. it's not the same level as I'm going to start a new business to that point, but I'm like, well, it's harder to network. It's harder to get out there. And, like I can't go to the conferences anymore where I'm, seeing 500 people and shaking hands. Well, let's do a podcast and let's go virtual. Let's do virtual meetups. And, so that just the pivot, that people are making. So I'm glad to see you're seeing that pivot happen with great local, businesses. That's awesome. With all of those changes that are occurring, okay, so I'm thinking about you trying to get these, leases done. What is the conversation like with some of the owners? Are they just, are they happy and appreciative to have, the new next tenant? Are they being more less or more restrictive than, in the past for different kind of like credit, new business, startups, that type of thing? You mentioned a little bit of it, which is the local regional part. That was good communication, but what are some of the changes in, leasing that's happening to you right now?
That's a really good question, because I think when it comes to getting deals done with landlords, it's key, right? Because usually I tend to be the type of person that just beats a business concept to death. And I want to make sure that they are going to be viable and that they're going to fulfill the lease term, and there are not going to be any issues. And so I'll thoroughly investigate it. And now, like, well, this doesn't shake out. This is too risky. There's not the financials. They don't have the experience. And so it's really finding the landlord that's like, you know what, it's okay. This is where we're at. Yeah. And we're just going to assume that risk, because the risk of that is greater than waiting around for someone else to come along. And they're probably not going to come around for a little while. The biggest challenge we're having is in financing, right? So these tenants are having a really, really hard time getting SBA loans to start up new businesses. SBA is being really, really selective in this environment. So a first-time restaurant operator is going to have a hard time. So they're going to have to get really, really creative with their savings, family and friends, finding stuff off of Craigslist to do whatever they can to get started. And owners either have to be okay with that, or they have to be okay with it sitting on the market a little longer. And that's not usually an approach I would take. It's with a landlord. I usually would just be like, yeah, I'm going to keep working. We're going to find another one. But I've found myself being much more, for lack of a better word, taking a little more leadership in that and telling landlords, look, we're watching the market. This is what the market is. So you can either wait for the old market to return. And I don't know how long that's going to be. It really is going to depend on banks, and it's really going to depend on the health of those restaurants. Or you can take this and we figure it out, and they're probably going to fail. Some of them will. Some of them are going to make it. So it's up to you. These are the two different risk parameters that we have. Neither are awesome, but I'm finding a lot of landlords are really open to it. And now they're doing things to circumvent the risk a little bit. Like they're doing shorter lease terms. They're not really excited about paying leasing commissions on a 10-year deal for a tenant that's never been in business for themselves, because the probability of them making it to the 10 years is a question when they're paying a fee for that. So I'm okay with it. Hey, you know what? Let's just do it for a year and then see what happens if the tenant's okay with it, and trying to be a little bit more creative in lease structures. It doesn't work well when you're financing a property. You can't have a lot of short-term leases in retail. The banks just don't lend on that. And so that's not a good long-term solution. Landlords need long-term leases. Tenants need long-term leases. They don't want to invest into a space that they're only going to control for a few months. Yeah. So it takes a lot of creativity and discussion on the parameters and the constraints of the market. But so it's a whole lot more work for a whole lot less money, but it is what it is, and it's not all bad.
Yeah. Everyone's making sacrifices. No matter what industry, no matter what area you're in, no matter what, city, state you're listening right now, I think we all, everyone pretty much understands that. And the teams or the people, the owners, landlords and renters and businesses, if we're all kind of doing our part to make the best of the situation, we've all got to make our way through it one way or the other. Right. So yeah, that's awesome. So what are tell us about a typical lease in this space that you're leasing, like length of years, triple net lease, or what are typical leasing terms, so we can kind of get an understanding on that.
Post-COVID?
Yes. Yeah.
Is there anything typical yet? I don't know if we've been doing this long enough in this environment to establish a norm. Yes. But 3 to 5 years would be the norm in terms of lease term, whereas before 7 to 10 was the norm.
7 to 10. Okay.
And so now we're at 3 to 5, and the leases that are getting done are either as is. So that means the space was in pretty decent condition and got leased up, and the tenants just kind of taking it and putting their own time and effort into it.
Yeah.
Or the landlords are coming to the table with more TI, tenant improvement allowance. Mm-hmm. And they kind of have to for those deals, for those spaces that aren't in great condition, because mm-hmm. tenants are having a hard time getting loans. And not everybody's sitting around flush with cash when it comes to a first-time business owner. So
yeah,
got it. That's kind of what we're seeing right now. But yeah, they're all triple net leases. As far as rates go, I think a lot of people were expecting these steal of deals to happen. And oh my gosh, shopping centers must just be suffering like crazy. But the reality is we're really long-term leases. And landlords are much more willing to accept a vacancy for a few months in hopes that they can get a higher rent later on. Because by accepting a lower rent, it creates a kind of a red flag for the market and for the lender and everybody, and can impact the value of their building, because some of those other rents in the center might get marked down upon a sale. So a lot of landlords will really hold out, and they might be more inclined to give other incentives like free rent and TI to keep that rent higher until the market calms down a little.
Yeah. It makes perfect sense. And those for those that are listening, maybe first time hearing a little bit more about triple net lease, Bethany, explain what a triple net lease is, so that our less experienced, maybe passive investors, like, what's that? What is that?
Yeah, triple net leases is kind of the direction a lot of office and retail leases are going. Almost all retail leases are triple net. And the reason that is because it is very challenging. The longer the lease term, the more difficult it is for an owner to be able to mitigate the risk of increased expenses. And so an apartment or another product type, if you have 1 or 2 year leases and your expenses skyrocket, well, you raise the rent the next time around. Well, what do you do when you're in a 10-year lease and all of a sudden your property taxes skyrocket, right? You don't have any hedge against that protection, and it creates a huge element of risk. And so the way that the market has accommodated for that in that industry is through triple net leases. And they're usually required by most lenders. This isn't just something landlords want. Like it's required because it's a huge risk to the bank to have those leases as well, or all-inclusive leases. So triple net lease is the best way I like to describe it to a first-time tenant or a first-time investor in triple net properties, is to explain it like a escrow account for your house, right? You have your mortgage payment that pays for you living there, but then you've got this escrow account. And this escrow account is an estimation of what your taxes and insurance are going to be. And you're going to pay that into it each month, and then it gets rectified at the end of the year over or under. And it's a protection for the bank that you're going to pay your property taxes, you're going to pay your insurance, so that if something happens, they're still okay. Same thing in commercial, but on a larger scale. Triple net includes taxes, insurance, and common area maintenance. But the biggest component of it is property taxes. Most people assume it's common area maintenance, and they think they can negotiate that amount. It is not negotiable. It is not a profit center for the owner in any stretch of the imagination. Mm-hmm. It's just mostly taxes, insurance, which can't really be controlled. Common area expenses can be controlled a little bit, but it really is a pretty small percentage of that pie. So yeah, hope that helps.
Yeah, it does a lot. I think knowing that for the first time that I heard triple net lease, I was like, what is that? When I look at multifamily deals, I go, operating income minus expenses, and I would look at my NOI. And then I looked at a commercial property, a triple net lease as an owner, and I would go, oh, there's no expenses on the bottom of this. There's no taxes and insurance. And where are those? Like the bottom half of that pro forma is on the business buying or leasing out the property. I go, oh, a little different pro forma analysis. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's completely different. Yeah.
Yes. Hello, hello. You're listening to the Five Talents Podcast. I'm your host, Abel Pacheco. If you're enjoying this podcast, then I know you're serious about achieving financial freedom. Are you ready to create your own path through multifamily investing for yourself and your family? Then I know you're going to appreciate our Investor's Guide to Multifamily Investing. It's titled Tackling Commercial Real Estate the Easy Way. We use this guide to invest ourselves in $93 million worth of real estate. So we're going to show you the basic mechanics of multifamily syndications and how to evaluate your next passive investment opportunity. So the best part, if you subscribe to our podcast now, leave us a review and a rating. I'm going to give you a free copy of our ebook. So please take a moment to do that now. Once you've done that, go to 5tcre.com/ebook, 5tcre.com/ebook. Make sure to let us know you left a review and we're going to send you a free copy. So thank you so much for subscribing to the Five Talents Podcast. We really appreciate it. So as an owner, put your owner's hat on for a minute. What are the questions that I should be asking my property manager before I'm securing them as this is the team that I want to go with to lease my property, to make sure I'm turning it over to somebody's hands? What should I be asking? I'm sure you have a few of these nuggets.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. And one of the things I want owners to ask is, how experienced is your team? Tell me how many years they've been in the industry, and tell me about your turnover, because there's a lot of turnover with property managers. And if you're an owner and you've hired a management company, but every year you have a new property manager, it's not really a good mix for you. They can't really learn what's going on. The other thing is, how do you guys handle your accounting? Do you have a true accountant or do you have a bookkeeper on staff? And understanding their experience with being able to handle those books is really, really important, especially in office and retail. Can't tell you how many times we will take properties from national management and leasing, national property management companies with horrible reconciliations, meaning at the end of the year, they've completely botched up the triple net accounts. Tenants have over and underpaid and trying to track that, and they haven't kept good records. And unfortunately, that is the norm in the industry. So I think an owner really should ask property management, not how long has the company been in business, but how long have your property managers been doing it? Also, who's your accountant? Tell me their resume. I want to see it. And how long have they been with you? How long has your team been together and worked together as a team? I think that's really key.
Yeah. Okay. Those are all good. Is it out of place for me to say, can I see some examples? Sanitize those and let me see your book record keeping or some kind of results, or what am I trying to say? Can I see some examples of what you'll be reporting to me on a monthly, weekly, quarterly basis, or what's that?
Yeah, we give anybody a sample management book report so that they can see what it looks like. We'll just take the property name, property specifics out, and kind of sanitize them, like you said, so that we're not divulging anything confidential. But that doesn't always give you a whole lot of insight, because anyone can give you a good example on a PDF. It doesn't really tell you what I really like to know is everything will be seen in the general ledger, right? You can see all of the correcting entries, all this other stuff. You can see what's really been happening. But most owners don't get the benefit of looking at another owner's general ledger, right? It's probably not appropriate to be sharing that. So what I would suggest for an owner that's researching a management company, ask to talk to other clients and make sure it's not a, for lack of a better word, incestuous relationship. Make sure that owner that they're recommending to you isn't in some way connected to the ownership of the company, because there are a lot of owner operators that also manage their own properties. And so you want to make sure that they are a truly third-party client and ask them, what other management companies have you worked with? How do these guys better? And go interview their other clients.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, that's good. Good insight. Absolutely. So let's say from an owner standpoint, and I'm trying to figure out, who to list my property with, right? And I've chosen you guys, and I know exactly who I want to go sell my property. There's always, I'm looking at it from, I'm the buyer and I'm trying to buy my property. I have a little bit of expertise, maybe in my single family area, and I'm trying to break into commercial real estate for the first time. and somebody comes to you and says, hey, I'm looking at buying some buildings. How does a new, generally younger, less tenured commercial buyer, project or give you the right information so that you can send them a deal or two? So I mentioned, I think we have a lot of general partners that are new buyers, new general partners. They've done it once, twice, maybe. They're still very less tenured, and I'm trying to figure out how to buy something and grab your attention and make sure I'm real. What do we do? How do I do that? How do I attract the best opportunities my way?
Really, that's a really good question. I would say put together a really good resume, right? And if you've closed a deal, get a letter or a little quote from that broker saying, hey, they closed and they didn't retrade. Retrading is a big deal. So if you are good at analyzing your properties, putting them under contract and closing, keep a record of all those properties that you've closed and that you haven't retraded on. Use that to your advantage, send that over. And don't take offense to them poking at you, because if you keep in mind, when we list a property, we probably have 100 potential people looking at it for every one property we bring out, right?
Wow.
So they're like, I'm the best buyer. I'm the best buyer. Like, everyone says that. We need to see it, right? And it's hard because you want to give everyone a chance, but the reality is, when you're the listing agent, you really got to look out for your client. And the thing that's going to kill it isn't just the most money. You're not getting the most money for it. It's putting it under contract for a few months and having it fall out because they weren't able to secure the financing or they weren't able to raise the money. And so what we usually like to know is, do they already have the money?
Mm-hmm.
And do they already have it committed? Where is it? And are they able to close?
Mm-hmm.
And what are their conditions for closing? Can they get aggressive? The way to get around that, if you don't have the answer to all those, let's say you don't have all the money raised. Let's say you're not sure you're going to be able to get financing.
You're doing syndication like me, and I have to get a deal. I analyze it, put it in an LOI, send it out there, and then I have it, and then I take it to my investors afterwards and say, hey, we're trying to raise capital. So yeah, somebody in our shoes, what do we do there?
Non-refundable earnest money. Not a fun thing that you want to hear.
There's a simple one, right? Put down a big fatty check on it. I love it.
Yes. Yeah, I wish that there was something else I could tell you that, your smile will get you through the door. But the reality is, money speaks. And if you're saying, I'm willing to invest my money because I believe that I'm going to be able to close this deal, then I'm going to listen. But if you're not willing to risk it, and I've got 99 other people that I don't have all these concerns about, you got to do something, right?
Yep.
And the something is non-refundable earnest money, in my opinion. Also, really short due diligence period.
That's
all the things you need to raise money, I know, right? But in this case, you can't ask the clock to start ticking on your seller's side for you to start to do it, right? It's just not fair. You're doing it on you're getting paid basically on their dime to go raise money. So the shorter you can make the time frames and the more attractive you can make those contract terms, the better. Most of the time, if we get an offer and it's just like crazy good, too good to be true, we start looking at, okay, what are the contingencies? Okay, these contingencies are so crazy that this isn't even a real offer.
What are some crazy ones you see, so we could say, hey, don't put this in the deal? What are some of the crazy examples where you're like, yeah, that didn't work?
I don't know what's normal in multifamily, but if you're seeing feasibility periods stretch out months and months and through the seasons, we got to put a really, really tight lock on this. You don't need 90 days to go through a bunch of leases, right? If you got your team together and you're ready to act, you got to put your money where your mouth is and start doing due diligence fast, and be willing to say yes or no and move on quickly, because that time is very expensive for a landlord. And think about it, if you're pulling it off the market, that landlord has just taken away all the interest, all the momentum they've gotten from marketing. And they're saying, I believe in you, you better close. And then you'd be like, I don't know, I got cold feet, or, this investor backed out, right? So it's tough. You got to really just throw it all out there and show them to believe in you, because you believe in you by putting up some risk.
Yeah. We're On our side, we're definitely trying to do as much due diligence in advance, walking properties, looking at the outside. And when we, the moment that period starts, it's like we're there day one, walking interiors, making sure that it works immediately, getting our hands all over the lease, and trying to do as much of that in advance before the PSA gets signed. So it makes a lot of sense, though. There's a lot of similarities from what you're saying that absolutely 100% apply, whether I'm in retail, office, or multifamily. So that makes a lot of sense.
So what you just said is actually a huge thing too, that I should, highlight, saying that I've been to the property and we've already completed the due diligence, or we've completed 50% of our due diligence. Those are magic words to an investment sales broker, because then they're like, great. Last thing they want is someone getting there and all of a sudden seeing it for the first time and being like, wait, this isn't what I thought it was. Or I went to my nephew's birthday and we didn't have time to go through the documents, right? If you can tell them the opposite and take that risk off the table and be like, we have already completed it. If you send me the due diligence documents, we will do all of our due diligence before contract, and we're willing to do the world's shortest feasibility period. Yeah. Those are another ways to get around it, right?
Okay, that's good. That's good insight. Here's another one that I heard. I just recently heard this, like literally yesterday. Tell me what you think, if it has any sway. So I like what you said was put together almost like your brag book or your deal closing sheet. Here's the deals that I've looked at, analyzed, bought, purchased. I move forward on every one of these. Here's my letter from my past brokers, my referral. The guy didn't retrade. They moved forward, right, on these properties. Well, they did that, and then they also included a video of themselves. And he goes, hey, he said, I put all my deals together. I put my sheet together. I let them know I'm a buyer here. And then I started including a video of myself, what I do, how many years I've done it, the way we operate. And he goes, if they have 100 packages, I guess, like on the other side, and they're all the same, but me, I have a little personality in there. What do you think about that? Have you come across video submissions at all?
I have not yet. No. I think that's an interesting idea. I haven't come across that yet. Personality is a big deal when you're dealing with someone. If they come across as very abrasive or untrusting or difficult, then they're going to go with someone they know that's just going to be pretty easy to work with and isn't a risk, right? So a volatile personality or an emotional personality is a red flag when you're evaluating buyers, right? And so they will look at and say, you know what, this person seems steady and rational, and I'm able to communicate the challenges of the property, because there will be challenges. And so being able to show your personality and who you are, whether through video or whatever, is probably not a bad idea. Yeah. There's some buyers out there that have great resumes. They're just also known for being really difficult when things go wrong. And so you're like, I'm only going to show you the stuff that's perfect. And that means you're never going to see anything, because nothing's ever perfect, right?
Yeah.
So,
I had that advice early from a couple mentors and coaches. They're like, you just want to perform. You want to be a great buyer. If you put it under contract, try not to retrade it unless it's something that's just crazy wrong with it. If you're buying a $10 million deal and you found an extra 100, 200K of issues, like just eat it, just keep going. And you want to have that, really good track record of, I didn't retrade the deal. Obviously good something's advice. Horrible. If something's horrible, you're gonna bring it up. But he's like 100K, time to move forward.
It's good advice. One of the most interesting buyers I ever worked with, he wasn't a syndicator, and this isn't something that a syndicator can really do. But he would actually put together these ridiculous offers that were way lower than they should have been. And I always had to warn clients, you're going to get one of these, please ignore it. You're going to feel like you need to accept it, but don't do it. And every now and then he'd get lucky and one of the clients would take the bait. And what he would do is he'd put these really short fuses and be like, this offer will be off the table in 5 days or 3 days or 2 days. And it's really low and it's horrible. But what it is it's $100,000 earnest money, non-refundable after 5 days. Right. And so suddenly you're like, wait, what? And they come, and you're like, don't ignore him. and he'll have these ludicrous things in there that, unless the NOI sways by like $500,000 or something, or some $500,000 issue comes up, he promises to close. And every now and then you'd get lucky, right? That's not really something a syndicator can do. But I always thought those offers were entertaining because I was like, at least I know I'm going to get one offer anytime I brought something out that was challenging.
You get
I
an
knew
offer.
that guy was always good for one.
He'll bring an offer. I love it.
Yeah,
He'd
get 1 out of every 100 maybe. But.
Right. Hey, so maybe you can, talk a little bit about cap rates too on the sales side. Like what are the cap rates, maybe pre-COVID and now in your space in San Antonio, Texas? What are properties trading at right now?
That is a good question, and we get asked that a lot. And you'd be surprised to know they haven't really moved that much. And the challenge thing is that a lot of the deals that have closed recently were deals that were under contract before, and buyers, knowing that they probably shouldn't retrade because they're not going to get a second chance at those, haven't. And so they've closed. And so that hasn't really moved the needle in terms of cap rates yet. The other thing is debt is even lower than it was pre-COVID, right? And so that creates that margin of spread. And so now there's even more of a spread when you're looking at leveraged returns. And so, yes, there might be some more risk to those tenancies, but if you're doing a center that you feel comfortable with and you've got a vet, a dentist, a dollar store, there's no reason for that cap rate to adjust. If anything, it should be getting lower. And in some cases, we are seeing that happen because there's such a low level of inventory. So there are a ton of 1031 buyers out there right now, desperately looking for inventory and can't find it because no one's really excited about bringing their properties on the market while their NOI is in flux. They may have worked some arrangements out for payments for their tenants during shutdown, and they're in the process of getting those repaid, or they might have a tenant that's being deferred a little bit. How do you underwrite that, right? Do you give full credit to those tenants? Will 100% of them get back to normal rents? Those are the questions that are being asked right now. So a lot of people are holding those properties off the market. So the inventory is just, the supply's never been lower, in my opinion. And as a result, you're not seeing these adjustments in cap rates that a lot of investors are hoping for. They're like, I want post-COVID pricing. And you're like, great. That means you're paying more.
Yeah. We're not seeing any distressed properties on the multifamily side. Well, I'm not. I can't speak for the brokers. Maybe I just never see the deals. But I can tell you that everything that we're looking at or underwriting is absolutely 100% getting a ton of offers, asking for premiums, same or even lower cap rates. The requested price, anyways. I heard kind of a data point between a few brokers that were talking, and the data point was in Austin. Well, cap rates are crazy in Austin, right? But the point was they had a 200 unit multifamily deal, and the whisper price was like $26 million. The property traded at $34 million and had like 43 offers on it. And I go, okay, well, there's some good movement. And you're saying you even see sometimes 100 offers or 100 interested parties, and that's it's a lot. That's a lot of demand for, especially with a lower supply, if you don't want to bring your property to sale right now.
Yeah, single tenant properties are having their heyday right now because they're a safe haven, right? And in times of uncertainty, people run to a safe haven. So bringing out a single tenant QSR or doing a sale leaseback is an amazing opportunity right now for sellers because there's nothing out there and people are desperate for it. And so there's definitely some premiums going on there if it's a good quality tenant.
Yeah.
And with a good long lease term.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, so maybe the last couple of things I'd love to talk about is your expertise. And when you said you serve a lot of family offices, sophisticated buyers, what are the things that they, in your expertise and what you see, what are they doing differently than everyone else? Like how do they operate today? How are they, making their decisions, and just any of those learning things? Because they're a family office or sophisticated owner for a reason. So what are some of the things that we can learn from to say, oh, we should probably mimic some of these golden nuggets here?
For us, I think the reason why we work so well with those groups isn't the way that they operate or underwrite. It's the way they communicate, and it's their understanding of the market. Because they do it full time, they have a keen awareness of what's happening in the market, and it saves us a lot of time trying to not just educate them on the market, because we love to do that, but convincing them and showing them with data that that is the market. And so sometimes when you're working with someone that's just a part-time investor and you're telling them, like we just talked about, that there's not this post-COVID pricing, you might have to spend a lot of time showing them a bunch of deals and a bunch of data just to get them to buy in and understand that you're not pulling a fast one on them. This really is the reality of the market, because they haven't spent that whole time. They might be a dentist or an engineer, and you have to be like, well, a lot's happened in 3 months. Let me bring you up to speed, right? Whereas when you're working with a group that's doing it full time, then they already know, and they're like, hey, I'm ready to meet the market. Let's make it happen, right? And so we have a group in our office, and we know that their centers, if a tenant calls in and it's a reasonable tenant, you can get a lease signed that week. They are ready. You do not need to explain to them the challenges of where they know. They've already been doing this. They have properties in all these different states. They are fully in tune, and you can respond much quicker to market conditions with them. So generally that's why, and it's just their time that they spend in the market. So for a group that doesn't have that benefit, right? You have a day job, doing things like listening to podcasts, right? Reading, setting up Google alerts for properties and things that are trading, and making sure that you invest a significant portion of your day just to be keenly aware of what's happening in the market will really help give the impression of the sophistication level and help you perform at that level. The other thing is talk to brokers, very, very active brokers, right? Find out who the people are that are moving the most properties, and meet up with them regularly, to the extent that they'll allow, right? And just talk to them, be like, what do you see? What's going on? And gauge them and benefit from their time in the market, and see what you might be able to glean from them.
That's great. That's great advice. That's a great advice. And so all the education, the development, things like that, the more of it you do, the better buyer you're going to be. You're going to be more, you're going to become that sophisticated buyer. You're going to know the market trends, know the data. You'll be able to do your analysis and come with a better mindset of the current market, and be realistic. And then, also know where if you find the diamond in the rough, you'll actually be able to know, oh, this is a diamond. I know it is. But anyways, that's awesome. So you guys do a bit of training development. We talked about this, pre-interview real quick. Tell us a little bit about the passion on developing people. You guys have had some certain times and cycles, and now you're going to pour into other people that are trying to learn more about commercial real estate as well, right?
Yeah. So we were talking about that before, because people ask us all the time, at what rate do you want to grow the company? Well, we grow at the rate of people, right? To the extent we can recruit or train. So we'll recruit to the best of our ability, but in that same token there's an obvious gap in this next generation and there's not a transfer of knowledge going on between industry professionals in property management, leasing, or investment sales. And so we thought we're big believers in mentorship. We actually have 5 generations of mentors at our office.
Nice.
Chad's mentor, Mike Buckner, Chad, to me, to Zach Pahara, to Tyler Brazelton in our office. And so it's really cool that we're all under one roof, and we're huge believers in mentorship. Beyond partnering up with a senior agent and learning how the business works, there's really a lack of curriculum. So we have invested a lot over the past year of creating and developing curriculum for people to learn the different aspects of how to win a listing, how to negotiate an LOI, how to do a purchase and sale agreement, how to understand your title reports, how to just everything related to commercial. There's just a shortage of education materials in our industry for people that are in their first year or two. And so our goal is to make it as easy on those in our office that are doing mentorship, so that they don't have to answer those kind of questions. They can focus more on the soft skills and the client relationship type skills. And we take some of the burden off of them by training them through a training program. So for this past 2 times, we actually opened it up to everybody outside our organization even. We're like, hey, you know what? If you need to learn something about the industry, it doesn't matter if you're at Foresite. It doesn't matter if you're at our competitor. Come on in, and we'll train you. We want to. This is our way to give something back to our industry and to connect with new talent. And it's kind of fun right now. The program that we're doing right now actually has 6 different firms in it. And it's not something we charge for. It's just something that we're really passionate about, and kind of happens naturally, right? We find ourselves naturally teaching people about it. So we might as well just organize it. And we have a whole lot of fun doing it. So I don't know where that'll go, but we're having a whole lot of fun.
Yeah, that sounds really awesome. And that's actually probably, I think, in a similar vein, the way we met, because I was when I reached out to Bethany originally, I saw some of her successes on LinkedIn, and I kind of pinged her, and I was like, hey, I'm kind of thinking about jumping into commercial real estate, leaving IT. This is what I'm doing, and like the very next message was like, yeah, if you need some help, happy to provide you some insight. And I go, well, this is the CEO and principal of the company. And I go, well, I'd love to. And she goes, well, I'm available. And, you took the time to meet with me, spend a good, hour. I don't know what it was, how long we were there, but really open your office to me, providing some education, providing some, consultation, guidance, and it wasn't going to benefit you at this point directly in any shape, form or fashion, but you took the time to give back. And I'm really excited that others now that are purposely looking for this kind of education in your space with your asset classes are really going to be able to benefit. And hopefully you see some amazing talent come by because of it. And I'm just, excited for you. And I'm appreciative that you would, take a few minutes, Bethany, even back then. So I thank you.
Well, thank you. Those are kind words. We're really excited about it. We love training. We love mentoring. So it's really a fun reflection of just kind of who we are anyways and what we like to do. But it's a hard industry to break into, especially if you don't have family connections and all that kind of stuff. And it can be really, really challenging. And it's not a very welcoming industry for people that are just kind of coming out and want to break into it. So I hope that we can change that.
That is for certain. Are you a first generation commercial real estate investor, or?
To say the least, yeah. So that's one of the things that's really interesting when you talk to someone in commercial real estate. They are very quick to give you their lineage and explain to you that they're great-great-grandfather or whatever. I don't have any of that. I have an amazing family, but I'm what a lot of people would call a pastor's kid or a missionary's kid. So my parents, I grew up overseas. PK, that's me. So I grew up overseas. My parents started a church in Latin America. I spent my whole life down there, came back to the States for college. I was 18 and then fell into commercial real estate. And then eventually I met Chad, who I work with to this day. And because I had a great mentor and because I was able to get into the right circumstances, I was able to break into an industry that I look back and I'm like, nobody else gets that same opportunity. It just happened to work out perfect by divine intervention to get all these little pieces put into place for me to be here. But the average person doesn't get that. And the industry is kind of, snubs their nose at people trying to get into it. And so I really hope we can change that because this is such a fun industry to be in. And we can really benefit by some really talented people that want to get into it. We just got to open up the doors.
All right. Well said. Yeah, I love it. Go reach those people and they should reach out to you. Who do you want to reach out to you right now? Who's your ideal perfect, person that if they're listening, they're like, oh, I want to talk to you. Who are those people right now? Owners or talents or, whichever. Who needs to reach out to you?
Certainly owners of shopping centers or office buildings for sure. But also if you're thinking of having a career in leasing or management, we don't have to be the firm for you. We may not be the firm. We may not even have a mentor available to partner you up with. But I love talking to students and people who are interested in coming into the business and doing property management, leasing, or investment sales. I'm really fortunate to have done all three of those. And so I love talking to people about, the different career paths and the pros and cons of each. So
awesome.
I'll talk to anybody.
That sounds good. How do we reach out to you? What's the best place for our audience to do so?
LinkedIn is a great place. I try to stay pretty engaged on there. I'm trying to be more intentional about it and I respond there or my email, but generally LinkedIn is the best way because LinkedIn, my email can just get clogged up with stuff and I'll miss things. But for whatever reason, that seems to be the best place so far.
All right. We'll make sure to put those in the show notes for this podcast. And is there anything else I didn't ask about or didn't touch on that you really wanted to highlight or provide any exposure to?
Not that I can think of. Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, we sincerely appreciate your time. Thank you, Miss Bethany Babcock. Wish you a lot of success and God bless you and your business over there at Foresite, and keep cranking on. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the 5 Talents Podcast with your host, myself, Abel Pacheco. Each week, we're going to bring you interviews from industry experts and commercial real estate investors who follow their dreams and achieve massive success. Before you leave, let me ask you a few questions. Did you enjoy this episode? Did you learn something valuable? Was your mind stretched to what's possible and what you can achieve? Do you want other experts just like the one you heard today? If you answered yes to any or all of those questions, then please take a moment to subscribe to the 5 Talents podcast, give us a 5-star rating, and most importantly, leave us a written review. Tell us what you liked, tell us your favorite guest, give us any feedback. I'm excited to learn and improve so you can get a more valuable show. So thank you again for subscribing to the 5 Talents podcast.